First, I'd like to congratulate you, Ace, on this new record. It's called Origins Volume 1. It's coming out April 15. It'll kick your ass. I mean, it's some of the best Ace Frehley guitar playing you are ever going to hear. Until the next record, I guess.
Who knew?
Yeah.
I started recording this record, and I really wasn't that excited about it, because it was, it was a covers record. I get excited about doing original material and writing it and creating it, and, but once I got the ball rolling and I started getting celebrity guests on the record, and it just snowballed into this excitement and magic that, I'm still listening to the record going, wow, it really came together. I can't wait for everybody to hear it.
I mean, anybody that would look at the song list would say, oh, Ace just picked a really, kick-ass group of cover songs to play. But, when you read your biography, No Regrets, I couldn't help but thinking that all these songs do have some sort of deeper connection, something out of your past or your youth. The record starts out with this really killer version of Cream's White Room. And I was sort of wondering what the significance Eric Clapton and Cream had on you when you were, coming up.
Well, when I was 15 years old, I cut school and went to a Murray the K show somewhere in Midtown. It was Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, but lo and behold, the two bands opening for them were the Who and the Cream. So I was completely floored by both of their performances and became an automatic fan, and, they helped shape my guitar playing, those guys, Pete Townsend and Eric Clapton.
I mean, didn't that going to see those shows too really motivate you? Like you decided sort of then and there you were gonna do that?
Well, the Who really motivated me. When I saw it was interesting because, the Cream were amazing and amazing musicians, but they just stood there. Am I looking at you or them? I'm just trying to get a handle on it. Am I talking to you or I don't know what I'm doing. But the Cream were amazing, but they just stood there. And in stark contrast, the Who was so theatrical, and Daltrey was swinging his mic around, and Townsend was throwing his guitar up in the air, smashed it into the amps, and Keith Moon at the end of the show wrecked his drum kit, and bombs went off, and I said, that's what I want to do, And, from that time on, I knew that at one point I wanted to be in a theatrical rock group, and we all know what happened, right? What happened?
You also did this really great cover of Spanish Castle Magic by Jimi Hendrix, and we all know that Jimi Hendrix is one of the greatest guitar players ever, but you really do something to it. You really sort of heavy the song up. Was there sort of, did you choose songs that you knew you could do something different or modernize or?
I mean, well, there were several different Hendrix songs I was entertaining, but, my drummer, Scott Coogan, came up with the idea to do Spanish Castle Magic. I cannot tell a lie. It wasn't my idea. And we tracked the drums first, and then John Five put the rhythm track on. I doubled it, and we did solos, and then I did the vocal. And then I took the hard drive down to my studio in San Diego, and I threw the bass on with Chris Wise, my bass player. And it just, it was magical how amazing that track came together. And so much energy.
Well, you not only saw Jimi Hendrix play, but you roadied for him too.
Yeah, in 1970, there was a concert in Randall's Island, a 3-day concert, and I snuck in backstage. They put me to work, and lo and behold, I'm setting up Mitch Mitchell's drums, and I got a chance to meet Hendrix very briefly. And I shook hands with Mitch Mitchell because I helped him pick out his snare drum that night. But, I mean, you got to understand, to me, it was such a surreal situation. Because, a year prior to that, I was walking around in high school with, the Are You Experienced album under my arm every day. And I just used to stare at the cover. So, I mean, just to think that one day I'm going to be roadieing for them, I mean, it was just, I had to keep pinching myself to make sure it really happened.
I mean, do you remember anything about the actual performance? Like, you were actually standing on stage sort of
Yes.
watching him play, right?
Well, what happens if he broke a snare head? I had to, I was roading. But, yeah. But I was like on cloud nine. I don't remember that much about the performance. What really struck me that it was just being around all those famous people and having a sense that one day maybe I would be doing the same thing. Right. I was hanging out with John Kay from Steppenwolf, and just 2 months ago, I did a Rock Legends cruise, and Steppenwolf was on the cruise with me, and I reminded John Kay about that very event and that day, and he actually remembered me. So I thought that was pretty amazing, unless he was just, playing along.
Well, you mentioned John Five, who is Rob Zombie's great guitar player.
Yeah.
Is playing with you on a couple of tracks on the record. How did you end up hooking up with John? Were you?
Everybody says to me, how did you get this person? How did you get that person? Everybody on the record are personal friends of mine. I have their cell phone number. I called them up on the phone. I said, will you play at my record? They say, yeah, what time? And it happened. It was great. I mean, even Paul Stanley was amazing. I called him up and I said, Paul, I'm doing a covers record. I'd love you to be involved with this song. He goes, sounds like a great idea. Sounds like a lot of fun. He was very positive from the very beginning to the actual end of the process. And I gave him co-production credit on Fire and Water because he was very instrumental in the final mix, and I got his input on the solo and the whole aspects of the song. But I mean, blown away by that. And John Five did a great job on Parasite. He plays the second half of the solo. I extended the solo, made it double the length, and he did an amazing solo after I did the basic solo. That I actually had a different solo on the track, and John said, no, you got to go over that. Play the solo you played on the record originally. That's what the fans are going to want to hear. So I played it right in front of him in one take, and he was like blown away. And he goes, all right, I'm going to do my solo now. But I mean, John's a good friend, and he's a fun guy to be around. He's such a talented guitar player, and a pleasure to be around.
And then you can get some makeup tips from him as well on top of that, right?
A what?
Makeup tips from John.
Yeah. I didn't know he had like 4 kids.
Yeah.
You look at John Five, this little guy, and he's got 4 kids. Go figure.
You mentioned John Kay. You do a Magic Carpet Ride, and that song has one of the most kick-ass rhythm guitar parts in the history of rock on it. But I always that song always frustrated me a little bit because there's a part where the guitar takes a solo, and it's the weirdest sort of noises.
The solo's really an organ solo on the original version, isn't it?
Yeah, but
I mean, there was a little guitar, but some weird feedback. I kind of took it a step further and did some delay stuff. But I know the rhythm track always got me. I used to play that song in bars when I was 17, 18 years old. We did Born to Be Wild and we did Magic Carpet Ride. I mean, who knew?
Yeah.
Is this water?
It's water.
It's just water, okay.
So you do cover 3 Kiss songs on this record. And, you do cover 3 Kiss songs on the record.
Yeah.
Sorry. Why did you pick Parasite?
Well, I wrote the song and I've been singing it live for years, and I figured it was about time, I recorded, and, let everybody see my version. I think I did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
You haven't even heard it yet. What are you talking about?
It's very heavy. It's a very heavy Parasite. But didn't the guys in Kiss originally encourage you to sing that song, and you were like, you didn't feel up to it at that point?
Oh, I used to be terrified to sing lead. I didn't think. I mean, to this day, I don't consider myself a singer. I sing out of necessity, not because I think I'm a lead singer. I'm really a guitar player, songwriter, producer, and then I sing by, out of necessity because I don't have a lead singer in my band. But, I never considered myself a singer, but I'm getting better at it. Every record I think I'm singing a little stronger. I don't know why. I never took vocal lessons. The vocals are just like my guitar work. I never took a lesson. I just kind of do it.
I mean, when did you start feeling comfortable? Like,
I didn't hear what you said.
Okay, when did you start feeling comfortable singing? I mean, was there a point where you're like, hey, this isn't so bad after all? Like, is there a...
Well, the guys in KISS actually pushed me they wanted me to do Shock Me, but I was so insecure about my vocal, I did it on my back. Everybody's heard that story, right? Or maybe you haven't. I need feedback. Okay.
Well, one thing that struck me about listening to this version of Parasite, it's almost like a little bit of a tip of the hat to Gene. I mean, you're sort of doing Gene a little bit on this song, right?
Yeah, I texted Gene like 3 or 4 times. I gave Doc a call, and Gene never got back to me. I guess he was busy doing other stuff. I'll get Gene on volume 2, okay?
I mean, I know you guys have had your beef over the years, but he did save your life a couple of times, right?
He saved my life 2 or 3 times. And also when I rejoined the band for the KISS reunion tour, when was that, 96? Yes. I was in the hospital for a while, and I had to leave to go to a convalescent place to recover from some surgery. And he didn't want me to ride in a wheelchair. So he walks into my bedroom in the hospital, and he picks me up out of the bed and carries me to the limousine. I mean, I don't think I've ever told anybody that, but I mean, it was amazing. Gene's got a lot of love, when he wants to show it.
I mean, you guys are brothers. I mean, it ain't all bad blood. So you also cover Cold Gin, which I thought was sort of gutsy. It's such a fan favorite that it's almost like Jimi Hendrix redoing Purple Haze if he was still alive, I suppose. Or did you have any sort of reservations about doing that particular song?
No, because like Parasite, I've been singing it live for years. So I mean, it was just a natural thing for me to put it down finally on a record. So there's another version instead of Gene's vocal. I mean, I love Gene's vocal, but it's about time you hear my version since I'm doing a covers and remakes record, right? What the hey?
I mean, when you go back and listen to the early records, and I mean, everybody has sort of the sentimental value of those records, but now with the modern technology, I mean, you can get such a better sound than some of those early. I mean, isn't that sort of revisiting those songs? It's like a chance to do a more definitive version or a better version of that too, right?
Well, when I listen to the first and second KISS record, it's just like they're so dry. There's no digital reverb. The production is just. Sometimes I cringe. But to me, the biggest advantage of what's happening now when you record it is digital. I mean, the flexibility you have with digital editing and digital recording. I mean, I come from the school in the 70s when we had to make an edit, we had to cut it with a razor blade. It was a 2-inch piece of tape, we had to cut it. And I remember a lot of times they took little slices of tape and put it off to the side, put it back together, we play it and go, hey, it doesn't sound right, put that piece back in, And sometimes it took an hour just to do an edit. But, with digital editing, it's a click of the mouse. I mean, it's only rock and roll, and I like it. What happened? Was that
Coke?
Did I answer your question? I don't even remember what you said.
That's okay. So Cold Gin and Parasite, I could kind of see, but of all the 3 covers, doing Rock and Roll Hell was a little puzzling to me. How did you go? You didn't play on the original version of that. How did you go about picking that
Rock and Roll
song?
Hell?
Yeah.
That was Ken Gulick's idea, one of the vice presidents from E1. He was in L.A., and I was doing overdubs Slash was playing on Emerald that weekend. So Ken came into town. He goes, I got a great idea. I want you to do Rock and Roll Hell from Creatures of the Night. I don't even remember the song because I didn't play on it. So, I pulled it up on YouTube, and I listened to it a couple times, and I go, this could be cool. This could be cool. And, now that I've tracked it, I did this really extended guitar solo on the outro, 2-minute guitar solo. So, everybody's going to love it. And I think the greatest thing about doing this song is the fact that I didn't play on Creatures of the Night. So Kiss fans will see what it would have been like if I did play on Rock and Roll Hell. So you got a treat coming your way. And I might even do it live because it's a fun song and it's an easy song to play. Gene wrote it, man. I think Bryan Adams wrote it too. Who knows the answer to that?
So
You should know that.
I don't know that. I don't know the answer. Sorry. Speaking of Kiss, and I've always heard bits and pieces of this, but I've never heard the entire story. I'm hoping you can enlighten us.
Fill in the blanks.
Fill in the blanks. So there's a story that Kiss took an IQ test. Like, how did that
It's so
come
true.
about?
We were hanging out when it was one of those really. We had like a day off in a town, and sometimes we didn't know what to do. We were so tired of screwing broads. It was like, let's get rid of the broads for today. And so we were hanging out, and it was me, Peter, and Paul, and we came up with the idea to shave off our eyebrows. So Paul goes, you go first, so I did it, and then Peter did it, and then it came Paul's time to do it, and he chickened out. And that was like earlier in the day, and then later we decided to go to a mall, and we're in a bookstore, and I found these IQ tests. So I bought a whole bunch of them. I said, let's all take IQ tests.
Well, you were you ranked the highest. I'm curious about who ranked the lowest.
I'm trying to remember. I think Paul and Gene, we were all within 10 points, 15 points.
It sounds like a diplomatic answer.
How important is an IQ test anyway? I was 161 or 163, I don't know, something like that. I think one of the other guys was 154, 50, It was negligible.
Yeah. All geniuses.
Yeah. God, how do you see that little thing?
It's
Reading off a little. That's why I have to. Oh, you got it. He's wearing real glasses. These aren't real.
not fake ones. Not fake intellectual
Okay.
glasses. So there is a little bit of a mini Kiss reunion, not the midgets, but a mini Kiss reunion on the record with Paul singing "Fire and Water," and I was wondering how you guys came about choosing that tune. And Paul's great. It's interesting to hear him sing like in a very bluesy sort of Paul Rogers way.
I didn't get the whole question.
Why did you do "Fire and Water"?
Oh, right. No, like I said, I called up Paul, and he was all excited about doing a song. Originally, we were going to do Little Wing by Derek and the Dominoes, and that didn't pan out. And then Paul came up with the idea to try take a crack at My Generation by The Who. And I thought that would have been good. But, I always thought that Roger Daltrey's lyric on that, his performance, he does like a stutter. He's stuttering when he's singing. So I didn't know if that should be played with. Right. And if you don't do the stutter, then people are going to say, well, why didn't you do it like Daltrey, So I came up with the idea to do Fire and Water. And Paul's a big Paul Rogers fan and a Free fan. And it's a song that I always wanted to do live. So we tracked it. He did an amazing vocal. It came together in about 4 or 5 days, and it was done, mixed. Amazing.
My theory about the the stutter in my generation was that it was all about the part where he goes to fade away, because really everybody at that point was waiting for somebody to really just say fuck off on my generation.
Okay. I never really heard the reason why he stutters on that song. I mean, he does it on purpose.
Well, I always heard that it was because they were imitating kids that were on amphetamines, and all the kids on amphetamines stuttered. And the people were taking amphetamines during that time. That's a little bit of rock.
People take amphetamines today.
Yeah.
What happened?
No. I'm thinking. So you've played with, you played with Paul a lot through the years, and I sort of wonder. I've never really heard you say, like, what do you thought of him as a guitar player, as like a rhythm guitarist?
Townsend?
No, it's Stanley. Paul.
Well, he's a great rhythm guitar player. He can play lead too.
Yeah.
You know, we played some dual leads on several songs over the years. I actually asked him to play, switch off with me on the solo for Fire and Water, and he, I guess he was just too busy to get it to the point where he felt comfortable. He just, but he doubled the chorus, and he put a lot into that vocal. It's an amazing performance. You'll hear it shortly.
When I was reading your biography, the No Regrets, I was, you guys have traded a lot of words over the years, but you've seemed to be a little bit more of a gentleman than the other guys in KISS. But one thing that struck me was that of your critique of, at one point, how the band started just getting, in your mind, too commercialized, too many gimmicks, too many. Was there one thing in particular in the band that just sort of, sort of broke the back of the thing?
I talk about that in my book, and I was very explicit. What happened was, once I shouldn't say we, Gene got out of control with the merchandising, and the lunch boxes, the whatever. Kids started coming to the concert. And we started out almost like an underground band, and then we obviously our following grew, but we started appealing to younger kids because of all the toys and whatever the case. We did that silly movie, Kiss Meets the Phantom in the Bar. Paul and Gene get upset about that. I just think it's a riot, I had so much fun doing that. But what was I talking about? So we get to a sold-out show, and there'd be, people there with their kids, 5-year-old kids, and my manager would say to me, "Hey, cool it with the cursing tonight, because, you got young kids in the front row, and you don't want to say fuck." So, that was kind of the beginning of realizing maybe we were becoming a little too commercialized.
I'm just checking to see if there's any 8-year-olds in the audience.
Okay. Well, it happens.
I felt like including Street Fighting Man was almost like a personal declaration. You were in gangs when you were a kid. I was wondering, what's the worst fight that you ever got in?
Fist fight?
Yeah.
Probably before I was in KISS, I did a gig in Paterson, New Jersey. I was actually filling in for another guitar player, and I pissed off the owner because I was playing too loud the whole night, and I got a little drunk. And at the end of the night, they didn't pay me what they said they were going to pay me. And I said, "Well, I want what you told me you were going to pay me." And he says, "Well, you better go to the boss." So I go to the club owner, and he was this mafia guy. And I said, I want my money. Next thing you know, I was on the floor. He fractured my cheekbone, and I ended up having to get like special surgery, to pop my cheekbone out, or my face would have been lopsided. But that was pretty, my doctor said, it fractured here, here, and here, and he said it came within 1/8 of an inch of puncturing my brain. So, maybe I should have backed off that night, but I learned a good lesson, I think.
What we would don't block a punch with your face. I guess
Yeah.
that's the lesson. It's,
Don't yell at a mob guy, after you've pissed them off all night by playing too loud.
a lot of the songs that you chose are from that, like late '60s, early '70s. But something slightly more current was "Emeralds" by Thin Lizzy, and it's a great track with Slash playing harmony guitars. Could you tell us how you picked that one, how that came about?
I've always been a fan of Thin Lizzy. I always thought they always should have made it bigger in America. They were huge in Europe, and for some reason they didn't really get to the magnitude in America that they should have reached. But in the '90s, I remember tracking The Boys Are Back in Town, and we never released that. But I always was fascinated with the riff in Emerald. I just thought it was such a killer riff. I like the lyrics. I like the imagery. When you listen to the lyrics, it's almost, you're thinking about a Conan movie or something. And the breakdown, with the dual harmony leads. It's just a really well put together song. I actually changed the arrangement. I actually added the second half of the second verse coming out of the solos because I just thought it was a better arrangement. Yeah. And, I've always been a big fan, and I'm really happy with the way Emerald came out. And of course, we all know Slash played on it with me, and he did some killer leads. And I wish I could play them for you today, but you'll hear them by April 15th, if not sooner.
So you had some wild times in Manhattan during the '70s and '80s. You were hung out with Belushi and all these guys. I was wondering if during that period you ever partied with Donald Trump. Let's make some news here, Ace.
Well, I used to hang out at Studio 54, and I partied with a lot of celebrities, but I don't remember partying with Donald. He was slightly, didn't actually travel in the same circles that my friends did. But, no.
I thought maybe.
It's probably better we didn't.
I guess it's a 40th anniversary of Destroyer. And Rolling Stone recently did an interview.
What was that?
It's the 40th anniversary of
text.
Destroyer.
Okay, when was that? Last week?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Gene told Rolling Stone that before Destroyer, you guys, his assessment was that you were basically a garage band, that you didn't know anything and could barely tune your guitars. I don't know. That seems like a big statement. You guys sounded pretty good to me. I mean, would you agree with that? Was there a change when you played Destroyer?
I'm not hearing the monitor that well.
I'm sorry. Gene basically said that you guys were a garage band and you essentially had to sort of learn how to tune your guitars and stuff properly, for that record. I mean, that seems like an overstatement.
Well, I don't, Bob was weird. I mean, Bob Ezrin's a brilliant producer. And, I loved all the stuff he did with Alice. And I loved what he did on Destroyer. But, the way he achieved some of the songs and the way he went about it maybe wasn't always the best way. He was kind of a dictator. But I love Bob. You can't take genius away from somebody that's genius. But how you achieve that, everybody achieves it in a different way. They go about things differently. I prefer working with Eddie Kramer.
Yeah. So you're going to be playing some shows in the New York area to sort of celebrate the release and of this record. You're going to be playing B.B. King's and on April 11th and 12th. If anybody wants to check that out.
What happened?
Who's in the live band? Who are you playing with these days?
I got Scott Coogan on drums. Got Richie Scarlett back in the band. And Chris Wise on bass. You know, Chris was formerly from The Cult, and he has his own band, Owl. So, I mean, he's a very sought-after bass player and fun to work with. Yeah. Great in the studio, too. And I think it's the best live band I've ever assembled. Don't you think?
I have to say that your playing on this record is really red hot, and you were telling me back there that your playing has been improving. That you're getting better as a player. Does that sort of surprise you after these years? That
Yeah. I don't really think about what I do. You know, I mean, when I write a song, when I write lyrics, it's almost like they're being beamed into my head. You know, I never labor on stuff. You know, I never practice guitar. I never practice guitar solos. They just happen. And I guess since I've been doing it for over 40 years, I'm getting better at my craft. What do you think of the album cover? You like it? See the 27? 27 on the blimp?
yeah.
See? They know. My birthday.
Are there any other hidden secret messages? I see you got the Twin Towers there.
The Twin Towers. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if many people know, but, you know, Kiss did a photo session on the roof of the Twin Towers. I've never even seen the photos. Maybe it just didn't turn out that good.
Right. I think we're going to take some questions from the audience now. If
Questions.
That's
Okay.
cool.
As long as you talk into the mic loud.
Hey, Ace, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, cool. Huge fan for the last 35 years.
Thank you.
Such a cool pleasure to talk to you. Speaking of the word cool, I think no one can deny that you represent the idea of cool within the band, Kiss. Even your color, your aura, blue is a cool color. And I mean, the idea of cool, of being a Kiss fan, has always been a bit of a struggle, because I love Kiss, and Kiss is cool. But sometimes people told me Kiss wasn't cool, and I would tell them, nah, you're wrong. So I was just wondering if Gene and Paul, who kind of flitter with the idea of cool, I'm not so sure how cool they are sometimes, have they ever acknowledged, have they ever talked to you and said, Ace, I mean, outwardly or inwardly or subtly, you're the cool guy in the band. We want to know more about cool. You represent cool. Have they ever acknowledged the fact that you're the cool guy in the band? I mean, come on, right? We can all agree he's the cool guy in the band.
Well, thank you. They never acknowledged it. Many times they didn't think I was cool because maybe I didn't show up, or I was late, or I was too loaded. But, you know, it went along with the territory in those days, you know. I wouldn't do anything any differently than I did. You know, it was a learning experience for me. You know, this September it'll be 10 years sober. So it's like, you know, I really feel I needed to go through all that nonsense to get to where I am today. But, you know, I got cool from being on the streets. You know, I grew up in the streets. I was in street gangs. And I used to set up my friends with dates. And that's how I got the nickname Ace, you know. It was just a lot of things. The way I carried myself, you know, I don't know. I think you're either born with it or you're not.
What was your
What do you
best
think?
pickup line?
My best pickup line?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I used to do. I used to have a teddy bear inside my jacket pocket. You know, and it would have its arms sticking out, right? And I'd walk up to a girl and I'd go, "You want to meet my friend?" And they go, "Okay." And I'd open up my jacket, there'd be a little teddy bear there with his arms hanging out. And they go, "Oh, what a cute little teddy bear." And then we start talking. That was one of my opening lines. The teddy bear effect. That could be a movie.
Hey, Ace, I got a question for you. I'm really looking forward to the new CD, and you talked about getting Paul Stanley on the record, and you talked about Gene. I just wondered if you considered getting Peter Criss to play or sing on either this one or possibly Volume 2? Because I know you've had him guest on some of your previous solo work. I just was curious about that.
Yeah, but, Peter's 3,000 miles away from me. All my guests were on the West Coast, and it was just easy, fast, and expeditious. I mean, I wanted to get Richie on the record, but, Richie lives here on the East Coast, and I did all my recording on the West Coast. And I didn't feel like flying anybody in and putting them up, I just, maybe Volume 2. Thank you.
How you doing, Ace? It's an honor.
Hi.
This is awesome. So for me, the best songs, right? You can hear them a million times, and they still have that something about them that you can listen to another million times, right? They give you chills. For me, Kiss, it's Strutter. Your solo stuff, it's Rock Soldiers. I was just wondering if you can give me your favorite Kiss song and your favorite solo song of your stuff.
One of my favorite solos that I've done is the one in Strange Ways. I think that's kind of a unique solo. But you mentioned Rock Soldiers, and I wanted to just fill you in on a little tidbit of information. Rock Soldiers was co-written by me and Chip Taylor, and Chip Taylor wrote Wild Thing, and I'm doing Wild Thing on this record with Lita Ford, which turned out great too. So, I mean, there's just a lot of weird things, things went full circle on this record, and a lot of the songs I chose, I didn't even know why I chose them. It was just kind of, I got a gut feeling that this was the right song to do, and I'm really happy with the choice of songs, and everybody else seems to be happy with it, right?
Yeah.
They seem to fit together like a puzzle.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's sort of like when I was listening, I kept on thinking, these are really great choices because these are songs that I would want to hear like heavied up a little bit and with some modern production. And Ace updated all the stuff and just really nailed it. I mean, the vocals, that must have been like a little intimidating singing songs by Jimi Hendrix or people that can really sing like that, but it's cool.
Yeah, the vocal I did on Magic Copyright. Well, that was a pretty good one. But Spanish Castle Magic, I never sang the song before. And I just listened to it like twice and just sang it. And that was it. And I may never sing it again.
Attitude.
But,
Attitude.
I don't, some people warm up before they go on vocally, play scales. I never did any of that stuff. I just go on stage and do it, go into the studio and do it. Boom. Go figure.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly.
All right. We've met several times. I'm the guy, Michael, from Walton and Burnside, originally.
Hi.
But-
How are you?
I was just curious something, a twofold thing. It was rather touching, the feature that The Voice did when you went back home to your building on near the, was it, I forgot the address now. But I was wondering, the feature they did, you went back to your childhood building and you sat on the steps?
Oh, yeah.
That was interesting.
Wait, you mean for the Village
Village
Voice?
Voice, that was interesting.
Yeah.
It was
It
a
was
nice-
interesting. It
Yes.
was a good day.
Yes. Marion Avenue. I'm just forgetting the name. That's where it was.
Marion Avenue.
So when I went to the Botanical Gardens, I knew you grew up there, and I happened to look at the building myself. I was curious. But it made me think when reading the piece. Paul Stanley says this in his book. I'm wondering about you. As you're getting older, I'm aware that
As?
Yeah, well, as
I'm
we
going to
all
be
do.
65 this year. I'm there.
Well, as everybody gets older,
Yeah.
Paul talks a lot about his family and the value of his family that he didn't have as a young guy. He's much more humble and things. I'm wondering about your family, your brother Charles and everything. You talk about them in your book. I realize there hasn't been maybe a lot of contact. Have you wanted to change that, especially when you're visiting in town?
My family was very strong. Everybody was into academics. My sister was valedictorian of her class. My brother graduated 10th in his class at NYU. I was the black sheep, Everybody played and read music, when it came time for me, the youngest of 3 kids, I said, I don't want to do that, you know? Just give me a guitar. But, you know, my dad used to teach Sunday school. You know, we went to church every Sunday. You know, I was brought up a Lutheran. And unlike maybe some of the guys in the band, I know Peter was raised by his grandmother. You know, I was lucky enough to have a pretty solid family and a support group as I was growing up. You know, and it gave me stability. Thank you.
Ace, as a New Yorker, do you still get amped up to play New York when you come back home?
Always, always. I get amped up to play wherever I am. I'm having more fun now than I had in years. You know, it's great because, you know, I'm producing my own records. You know, I'm in charge of the band. I pick the songs. You know, nobody's telling me what to do. So I'm having more fun than I've ever had. You know, when I worked with Paul and Gene, it was great, and we produced some amazing things, and it was magic. But, you know, those guys they want to do things their way, you know? And, you know, we were always butting heads from time to time, you know, but that's rock and roll. But I'm having more fun now than I've ever had.
2 more questions.
Ace, congratulations on your forthcoming album. One thing I've noticed as a fan for many years is your ability to take other people's songs and make them your own. So, you know, for years and years, I thought 2000 Man was your song until years later I heard the Rolling Stones version of it. You know, you alluded before, what kind of headspace do you have to get into to record these songs and then to, you know, to be able to have some of your disciples on this album, like Mike McCready from Pearl Jam? You know, what is that process like to be able to have people who you've influenced come back and pay tribute to you?
I mean, it was great. Like I said, it was really easy. You know, I called Mike on the phone. I said, Mike, you want to play on my record? He said, yeah. I said, okay, here's the tracks. It was really that simple. I called up Lita. I said, what are you doing this weekend? She goes, nothing. I go, all right, well, come over to the studio Saturday. I want you to play on Wild Thing. You know, I mean, same thing with John 5. You know, I'm in a very lucky position right now because I'm kind of an elder statesman, and everybody wants to work with me. You know, everybody kind of looks up to me. You know, I'm really looking forward, you know, even when I get older and I slow down a little, you know, start producing younger bands. But I don't really think about the process. I just do it. You know, there's people that watch other people live life, and there's other people that just do it. And I don't really think that much about what I do. I do everything kind of from the gut. If it feels right, do it. That's kind of my motto, and it pretty much, you know, hasn't steered me wrong. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
1 more.
Million questions I'd like to ask, but as an Ace Frehley fan, since I was a kid, obviously, I'm sure everyone has been, but I have to know about the legends. I've heard all these legends about you had a home studio that was literally a bunker. That was underground. Is there truth to that? I need to know.
My studio in Connecticut, it was dug out underground. It was a sub-basement. We dug out a side of a hill. I mean, God, I don't know how many yards of dirt, but I mean, you know, the bulldozers were going for days. And then it was all poured concrete with a huge skylight, and then there was just like one concrete wall with a giant glass brick window and a door about 18 feet tall. It was crazy. It was crazy. You can find it online.
Well, I have to ask this, the obligatory sort of Beatles question. Are you ever going to put on the makeup again? Is there ever going to be a reunion of the original band?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I always leave the door open. You know, I'm the kind of guy that says never say never. You know, those guys are always saying, you know, I don't deserve to wear the makeup, and I will never work with Ace again. But, you know, they said that before the reunion tour in '96. So who knows? It hasn't been discussed, if that's what you want to know. It hasn't been discussed, and, you know, who knows what the future will bring. You know, if it did happen at some point, I think it'd be magical if it was handled right.
Well, I think after they hear this record and hear how great it is and how great you're playing, you know, they'll have to take their makeup off, and you'll just get to where. Anyways, thanks so much, Ace. This has been fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks for signing the posters. I mean, those guys, you have a real keepsake here. Those posters are one of a kind. You can't get those anywhere else. Those aren't given away anywhere. So, anyways, it's cool stuff. Thank you.